The question. There appears to be a sufficient number. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. And all those opposed. The ayes clearly have it, and such will be the order. I'll now recognize the Secretary of the Convention for announcements.
Days. And like you, I've been listening to many distinguished speakers who preceded me. And like many of you, I recall a number of the speakers who sometimes during their remarks said, "I do not always agree with Wimpy." Well, let me tell you, we in the International Metal Workers Federation agree with Wimpy. We agree with him all the way. You were the first American union to join the IMF as long ago as 1915. A couple of weeks ago, I was checking through our archives in Geneva, and I discovered that 60 years ago, the IAM presented a resolution to the 1920 World Congress of the IMF. And in it you said, and I quote, and the resolution could have been written today, and it said, "We believe that the peace and safety of the world rest in the skilled hands of the world's artisans who fashion steel and iron into armaments and munitions of war." And the resolution continued, and I quote again, "We believe that this power widely used will do more than forever abolish the menace of war, than all the statesmen and diplomats in whose hands the destinies of the world have been entrusted." It could have been part of the speech of President Wimpensinghe yesterday. That far-sighted vision shown by the IAM in 1920 is matched today in 1980 by a union's contribution to internationalism. And this brings to mind the excellent report on the armament industry prepared by the IAM. But the IAM's commitment to international workers' solidarity is based soundly on an equal commitment to improve the lot of the working people of North America. And as President John F. Kennedy said not long before that fateful trip to Dallas, thank you again for being with us. I'll next introduce a brother with whom I have been associated on more than one occasion over the past several years. He's a fellow that, because of policy decisions that were designed to strengthen democratic institutions in Japan following World War II, Japanese workers have been able to build, through him and others like him, the second largest labor movement in the world. In Japan, 1 out of every 3 employees is a union member. And the Japanese union, which most closely corresponds to our organization, is the Japanese Metal Industrial Workers Union. And last year, when they were holding their national convention, they invited one of our general vice presidents, Sal Ayakio, to address their delegates. And we're very pleased that their general secretary is with us today to return that favor. In addition to the leadership role he plays in the Japanese Metal Industrial Workers Union, he also serves as a member of the executive committee of the Japanese Confederation of Labor, known as DOME, which is the equivalent of our AFL-CIO. And here now, my personal friend and colleague, to bring fraternal greetings from the Metal Industrial Workers Union of Japan, is Brother Iwao Fujiwara. Brother Fujiwara.
President Wimp-Singer, distinguished guests, Vice President, General Secretary Glover, officers and delegates of the convention, it is my great privilege to be given an opportunity on behalf of Japanese Metal Industrial Workers Union, Zenkin Dome, to address your 30th Grand Lodge Convention here and to extend warmest fraternal greetings to all of you on this occasion. Language is all the time problem for us. Some time ago, high officials of Japanese government made his speech at an international meeting. One of the audiences said, Japanese language sounds like English. Well, this occasion I'll try my speech in English. In 1953, the then president of our organization, late Mr. Maeda, visited IAM headquarters in Washington, and it was the very beginning of our fraternal relationship, which has been continuously strengthened by personal exchange. Let me enumerate the leading names of IAM who visited our Zenkin Dome. First of all, great international labor leader, Mr. Hopo, Mr. Rory Poirot, business representative of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Mr. Wimp-Singer, President, Mr. Stanley Jensen, and Mr. Sal Yakeo, Vice President, Mr. Glover, your General Secretary of Treasury, and International Affairs Representative, Mr. Ben Sherman, and Miss Helen Kramer. On the other hand, the local unions, as well as the Grand Lodge of IAM, have kindly accepted many members of our union with warm welcome and kind hospitality. Through these fraternal exchanges, we are much impressed by the leaders of IAM with their standpoint, not only as a devoted labor leader, but as a genuine machinist. And this convinced us deeply of the important fact that the strong labor movement entirely depends on the quality of human character. Under such circumstances, nothing else would be needed more than the interaction which is led by exchanging the wisdom and the courageous action of the leaders. The trade union activities of IAM are a good example for us, and will continue showing us the way to follow. Now, we have just opened the door to the 80s, the age of political and economical instability, which was triggered by energy crisis. The coincidence of the worldwide inflation and recession increasingly threatens the life and employment of workers. Maintaining the close contact with each other, politically and economically, United States and Japan face the struggle to protect freedom and democracy against totalitarianism. Frankly speaking, on the other hand, there is a serious trade disputes between the two countries that bears many problems. Governmental or managerial talks cannot lead to a satisfactory solution without
Increasingly more important each year is our membership in the International Transport Workers Federation, an And that's a worldwide organization of unions representing workers on railroads, airlines, and in every kind of transportation industry all around the globe. Its membership includes unions representing 6.5 million workers in 81 different countries. It's headquartered in London, and our General Vice President for Transportation, John Peter Paul, is the first machinist ever elected to its executive board. The president of the International Transport Workers Federation is a native of Austria who began his working career as a railroader. And early in his life, he joined the Austrian Railway Workers Union and has been working full-time to advance the cause of unionism ever since. Today, he's not only the president of the Railway Workers Union in Austria, but is also a member of Parliament. For the past several years, he's been ably directing the affairs of the International Transport Workers Federation. At the ITF's 32nd Congress in Dublin in 1977, he was host to a delegation of several of us who were there representing the IAM. And we are very happy to have this opportunity to reciprocate, and it's with a great deal of pleasure indeed that I present to this convention the president of the ITF, Brother Fritz Prechtel.
Dear friends, brothers and sisters, it is a real pleasure for me to represent the International Transport Workers Federation here at the Congress of the IAM. We, the ITF, have held our 33rd Congress a short time ago in the United States. Miami was not only the first ITF World Congress on America's soil. It was also one of our most successful and best organization Congress ever. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all American and Canadian friends once more most sincerely for the valuable help and support which they have given to our Congress. The International Transport Workers Federation is the worldwide head association of all the free transport workers. We have approximately 6 million members and claim to be an effective professional international. This effectiveness is necessary in the defense of human and trade union rights, as well as in the accomplishment of ideas on the sector of transport, which trample on the most basic human rights. We must first of all assistance our friends in these countries, no matter where countries are in to establish a solid lasting basic for democracy and quality of life. The answer of ITF and is a member association to the dictatorship can only be an even more intensive support of all democratic forces in this country. ITF is a factor in this world which should not be underestimated. Trade and transport are the pillars of industrial process, and all the further and development and impossible with some them. Particularly in our time, the workers represented by us are a power of economic and social life which should not be overlooked. We must therefore beware saying our duty only and technocratically and must effective distribution of some kind of goods, the transport of persons from one point to the other, and the provision of the population with the products, no matter what kind of products. We become ex-crisis in the crime if do not think where the transport it happens to go switch in the transport because of our efforts. Dear friends, if we want the wheel stand still, if we want the whole world commerce is called in question, the basis of our political and economic life is effective mass deeply. We therefore also know very clearly what our responsibility and act accordingly. Our actions are in close cooperation with the national unions and head organizations. This connection I would like to thank AFL and CAO for their valuable support international works.
President Wimpensinger, members of the Executive Council, brothers and sisters, delegates and guests. In accordance with official circular number 694, which was sent to all local lodges on April 25th of this year, the Resolutions Committee has been in session for the past week. Our function under Section 8 of Article 2 of the Constitution is to consider the resolutions properly submitted to this convention. Members of this Resolutions Committee were appointed by President Wimpensinger in accordance with the provisions of the Grand Lodge Constitution. These members are Ella Lustig, Lodge 1600, Burbank, California; Harvey Savoy, Lodge 987, Montreal, Quebec, Canada; Anthony L. Hodges, 1074, Indianapolis, Indiana. By the way, Anthony had to leave the conference because of an unfortunate death of his father. He's attending the funeral today. He will return tomorrow and be with us tomorrow. A.B. Green, Lodge 12, Houston, Texas, who is secretary and who will be reporting our recommendations to the convention as a whole. I am George Lysak, Lodge 1916, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I have had the honor of chairing the working sessions of this fine group of people. With that introduction, I will call on the Secretary of the Resolutions Committee, Brother Green, to present the committee's first partial report.
International President, members of the Executive Council, retirees, guests, and delegates, greetings from the Resolutions Committee. We're mindful of the fact that we're stepping in some big shoes of our predecessors here, Brother Heidenreich, Brother Solar, and many more. Trusting we'll meet your expectations in our report from the Resolutions Committee. Our very first resolution is a resolution that we've been watching and you've been watching very closely recently. It's an unnumbered resolution in your book. And before I start reading this resolution, I would ask each of you, corporate interest that has been advocated in union-free environment in this country had better take note that the right to join free unions was the top demand made by the Polish workers. Whereas the development of free and democrat unions represent the first necessary step toward a free and democrat society. Whereas the courage of the workers in defying a ruthless and reprehensive government in Poland reminds us of the courage of the workers who challenged the unabridged cooperative power in America in the early generations. Whereas we are elated and encouraged by the triumph of our trade union brothers and sisters in Poland. Therefore be it resolved that copies of this resolution be translated in Polish and submitted to the stricken leaders in Poland. Be it further resolved that the elected leaders of the Free Polish Unions be invited to visit with members of the Machinist Union in their homes, their union halls, and on the jobs as guests of our international union. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to the top officials of the National Association of Manufacturers, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the National Right to Work for Less Committee, and other advocates of union-free environment in America.
Hold it a minute. Volklinski has one in just like it. I thought we might, put it in with that.
Let me recognize the secretary of the committee to correct one small portion of this report, and I'll get to the brother on mic 7.
This was a late arrival of this part of the resolution, and it does complement the resolution. We're very sorry we didn't have it in our hands, but I'm sure you will agree with what I'm about to read. Whereas the Polish people have shown their courage by actions, whereas the cause of free trade unionism has triumphed in communist-controlled countries, therefore be it resolved that this 30th IAM and AW Convention go on record praising this great effort of the Polish workers, submitted by Lodge 1862 from the great state of Wisconsin.
We are on discussion of the motion to adopt the resolution. I'll recognize the brother at mic 7. Name and lodge number, please.
Donald Spafford, 1281, Marion, Ohio. Isn't it, or is it appropriate to add to this declaration that the Polish workers in themselves are not only facing the government of Poland, but the guns of Russia? This is not a political situation. This is a life and death type thing. These people, although of Polish extraction or not, have the bravery, I suppose, to stand in face of Soviet intervention for the right to be represented as human beings and workers entitled to a just living for the toils or hours that they spend. This is not only a matter of unionization, this is a matter of life and death. Threats from the Polish government could not deter them. Threats of Soviet intervention could not deter them. They, within themselves, decided that rather than suffer the yoke of insufferable conditions, they would bring about a strike at a totally totalitarian government. This stands out in itself as one tremendous act of bravery. Thank you, sir.
Brother, don't leave the mic. It's clear to me that you speak in favor of adopting the resolution. Did you wish to make an amendment?
Other than the fact that was recognized under the total.
With the permission of the delegate and this convention, the Resolutions Committee can accommodate the sense of what it is you point out and include that in the adopted resolution if you so desire. We can leave it in their hands.
Thank you, brother.
Very well. Is there further discussion? Recognize the delegate at microphone 2.
Brother Steve Kuklinski, Lodge 1862. I
wonder where you've been hiding, Steve.
I rise in favor of the resolution, and I say with deep gratitude that it's coming before this convention. There's a lesson to be learned for what you saw happen in Poland. When you're ever on a picket line, you can always remember what happened there and say, if they were willing to put their lives on the line, all you had is maybe your jobs for a couple of months. Thank you, Brother Chairman.
Thank you, brother. I'll recognize the delegate at microphone 3.
Thank you, Brother President. Adam Dombrowski, Local Lodge 1894. Translated means
The ayes have it, and such will be the order.
He wanted to speak, and that's the guy in that loud shirt.
What is that, 4?
Yeah, 4. He wanted to speak. I don't know what he's going.
For what purpose does the delegated Mike 4 rise?
Brother Wempe, you know I'm against the communists because I'm the Cuban. And the only reason I want to get in the mind to add it in that resolution to back him up any labor move in the world to be a free, not only in Poland, in any country in the world, because before Castro in Cuba, we have one of the best labor move, and Castro destroyed everything.
Brother.
And very soon, no longer we won't be free again because we, the Cubans, prepare to put it down the communists. And that's the only thing I want to say. And please, next time you see me in my 4, recognize me before you ask for a privilege question. Thank you.
Brother, would you please recite your name and lodge number for the record?
I'm sorry, but you know, Sergio Perez, 720E, Torres, California.
He won't let him speak.
It matters not if I know. It's important that the reporter knows. And let me say that once the previous question is called for, obviously my travels around the mic stops. I'll try to watch for that bright shirt you have on, though.
Very good. Now,
Second, it is their discussion. Recognize the delegated microphone 6.
Robert Shaw. Local 1857, Vancouver. I would like to say that I agree with the chair on this, as I don't like anything union heading through a government department before it reaches the local. I think that if the translation is necessary, it should be done by the IAM, and perhaps one of our bilingual members.
Are you through, brother?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Question is called for. The motion is
resolution number 5. Resolution number 5 directs the IM to adopt a manpower program similar to that of the UAW. Since the members of our resolutions committee were not familiar with the UAW's manpower programs, we called upon our research department at Grand Lodge to thoroughly investigate and report to them.
ask the Secretary to continue his report.
Resolution number 13. Now, as you follow through, you'll notice there's some gaps between resolutions I'm reading. And if you'll refer to your book, and this is the reason I ask you to look at your book, it might avoid some questions. You'll see where numerous of these resolutions that was submitted here has been referred to other committees, so please take note, if you will. Resolution number 13. Since this resolution refers specifically to the dental plan negotiated for our railroad members, it has been referred to the Railroad Committee for disposition. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
You may continue, Mr. Secretary. That requires no action by the convention. It'll be reported on by the Railroad Committee.
Thank you.